Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm interviewing Don Moore, founder and chief executive officer of Allegiance Title Company located in Dallas, Texas. And it's one of the largest and fastest growing independent real estate title agencies in Texas. Dawn has been a leader in Dallas legal and business community for over 30 years. She served the real estate and title industry in a variety of capacities. She was one of 6 lawyers appointed by the State Bar of Texas to the Texas Real Estate Commission's Broker Lawyer Committee, which is responsible for writing the residential purchase, sale contracts used by real estate license statewide. She served in this position for 12 years. She also served as president for the Texas Land Title Association for 2014-2015. Don has had the distinct honor in 1998 of being appointed by then Governor of Texas, George W. Bush, to chair of the Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation, which financed thousands of units of affordable housing. She holds a bachelor's degree in economics, graduating Magna Cum Laude and a JD degree from Southern Methodist University. Welcome, Don. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that's quite the introduction there. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm an attorney, having graduated from SMU Law School, as you said, and living in Dallas with my husband. And now I have 3 grown children and a daughter-in-law. Very proud of all of them and all that they've accomplished. But I have the blessings of living in Dallas and working in a real estate market that I enjoy tremendously. So having gotten here as fast as I can to Dallas, I acclimated well.
Nice. Now, let's talk about real estate. What led you into real estate title? Is it something you always wanted to do from the beginning, or did you just stumble into it?
Well, actually, this is a field that most people kind of just stumble into it, not going to school to be in the title business, but rather finding out about it later. And actually what happened with me is I committed to practicing law for 2 years after law school just to complete that legal education. And coming to the end of those 2 years, I started asking others about what else I could do with my law degree apart from the billable hour. And at the time, my brother was a district court judge, and he mentioned to me something that interested him before he was appointed to the bench. And it was called a fee attorney operation for a title company. And that's really a law firm that handles real estate closings on behalf of a title insurance company. And I actually thought that was a great idea because of all the areas of practice of my law firm, real estate was my favorite. And I had actually received a law school award for earning the highest grade in my real estate transactions class, so clearly real estate came easy to me. And then on top of all this kind of work as a fee attorney would be billed transactionally and not by the hour. I did not like the billable hour of the law firm. So I worked as an employee of a title company for 1 year to learn the business, and when I was approached by 2 attorneys to help open a fee attorney office in Dallas, and that was the start of my career in 1983.
Wow, that's quite the story. Interesting, actually. The real estate title industry itself, I mean, what does it take to be a good real estate title specialist, let's just say? What personal attributes, traits, or qualities do you think contributed the most to your success?
Well, with regard to the real estate industry, particularly in title, the area that we compete on is service to the customers, and everybody can say that. But if you have a real desire to find solutions and be of service to the customer, you're going to do well in this business. You also have to be detail-oriented. But I would say probably for what got me where I am today, I would say that my traits are I am persistent and consistent. And I think what got me here is my parents always believed in me and said I could do anything I set my mind to, so they provided me the support I needed to go on to law school and then to seek this avenue and then become my own CEO, an entrepreneur of my own company. But then I was also raised with 3 older brothers, which kept me always on a competitive edge, and my parents always expected me to be able to compete on their level. They're all successes in their own rights as well. So I think that helped me be consistent and persistent. And then one of the things that I tell my team at Allegiance Title is, as a competitive swimmer, all the way through my freshman year of college, I was trained never to look back, but always keep looking and moving forward. So I tell them I don't pay a lot of attention to the competition. I focus on what Allegiance Title does best and just put my time and efforts there. And then I think I am blessed in that I have surrounded myself with like-minded people who help me stay true to my values. And I think with these things all put together, it's pretty easy to be persistent and consistent in my environment.
Good. I like the consistency aspect. A lot of people talk about persistence, but consistency, I think, adds a nice layer. Can you give some specific examples when these traits actually played a role towards your path of success?
Well, most people pay attention to the fact that real estate has gone through its cycles, and having been in the industry since 1983, I've seen a few of the ups and downs in the real estate market. So I think staying consistent with high expectations of ourselves and our service to our customers have kept us moving towards success in all markets.
Great. One thing these interviews do is also highlight how these successful people we interview are able to get through, major adversities. Can you tell us a little bit, how you managed to overcome these major adversities? You actually probably, because everybody goes through them, right? So there's no straight line to success. So maybe you can tell us about your ways of getting through this.
Well, thinking about that question, again, I have surrounded myself with people who help me through that. But I think one of the biggest challenges, and it's nice that I was raised with three older brothers, so I didn't think much about it, but when I got into this industry, there were actually very few women in the leadership roles in the title industry. And in fact, I could probably count them on one hand. So I think some of my challenges at the very beginning were when I was trying to grow the business and convince the customers and potential employees to come on board with Allegiance Title. I had to prove to them that I had the substance and resources to stick with the business and provide the security they were looking for. I think they were worried that I wouldn't stick with it or be able to provide the security of a long-lasting job. And so I think that's where the fact that I was persistent and consistent helped in that way.
Good. I mean, these are obviously some amazing qualities for any entrepreneurs. One thing that maybe we already, addressed it a little bit, but let me dig a bit deeper, because one thing that really helps entrepreneurs become successful is their capacity to push through, so how do you keep going when you reach these extremely huge obstacles? So again, I may be going a little deeper in terms, how do you keep going when you think there's nothing you can do? Well,
the beauty of it is I love what I do. Every real estate transaction presents its own challenges and issues, and as we work through them, I learn something new every day. So I love solving the puzzles and finding solutions. It's invigorating. Plus, I get to meet many new and wonderful people along the way who are supportive and appreciate the service that we provide them. So I really love what I do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for that. Now, looking forward, what's your vision for your business in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Allegiance Title is expanding into new markets. Right now, we've been very focused in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and we have about 22 offices there. But we've just opened up 3 new offices in the Houston market, and we're looking forward to expanding there. We're also starting a new but related national settlement services company, and the initial plan for that is to get the new entity licensed in at least 35 states so we can service our national and regional customers who do business all over.
Okay, that sounds pretty promising. On that note, what do you feel the best way will be to continue to market yourself?
Well, I think we have a course that we've chosen and we think we're very good at, and it kind of follows our tagline. Our Allegiance title tagline is your resource for results. What we try to do is be a resource for our customers and clients by educating them on topics relevant to their business and finding answers to their daily challenges. And our commitment is if we don't know the answer, we'll find it. We actually produce a video tip of the week that has gone out every week for 3 years, and it addresses the current issues facing our real estate agents. It's actually very widely viewed and referred to. This goes out in addition to a menu of live classes we provide our customers. So we're out in the market every day, facing the same issues that they have, and then trying to find solutions and then teaching these solutions to our customers. And I really think we are appreciated for that, and so we will continue to serve our clients in this way so we can partner in their success.
Great. That's a good example of giving, right? So you give, and then eventually it comes back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's switch gear for a second. Let's go back and have a look at your clients. What do you think their most common problem is?
My clients, for the primary portion of my business, comes from the residential real estate agents. And I think one of the common problems, and I address it frequently in my Tip of the Week video, is that certain trends get started out in the marketplace statewide. And unfortunately, as these trends get started, sometimes people don't really understand all the ramifications of implementation of some of those trends. And then these trends that are started by the real estate agents end up becoming, quote, a requirement of the buyer and seller. So they say the seller requires them to do something or the buyer requires them to do something. So they start adding language that isn't already part of the contract that they have to use statewide. They go into a special provisions and they start writing these provisions in there. And unfortunately, some of their provisions that they've put in there have obligated their parties to do certain things, and there's some unintended consequences as a result. So we've been talking a lot about that. We're in a seller's market right now, and there's been some interesting clauses written in special provisions. And they're not to do that because they are not attorneys for the most part. That's practicing law without a license. But to service their customers, sometimes their customers request them to do things. And unfortunately, when they write it in there, it creates unintended consequences, and we see that often.
Interesting. Now, what are some common misconceptions that the public or even the real estate professionals may have about title insurance?
Well, title insurance is different than other lines of insurance. Title insurance is a risk elimination product as opposed to a risk assumption policy. So most people don't know what kind of work has to go on behind the scenes to produce that policy. The escrow officer spends a great deal of time doing what we call title curative. They're working, once they get the title examined, they're working behind the scenes to cure any title defects that we may find. For instance, there may be a divorce that has occurred, but there was no deed filed from the divesting spouse to the other. Or family member has died and they either have not probated a will or they set it up into a trust and we don't know who the trustees are. We have to cure all of those issues for title. And really, I've told my escrow officers, they're very experienced in real estate law, but they have to know also a lot about probate and estate law. They have to know trust law. They have to know IRS lien laws, bankruptcy, construction law, homestead and judgment liens, and much more. And often I tell my escrow officers that I think they can run circles around most real estate attorneys. But without the work that a title company does on each transaction to cure these title defects, we would have problems getting loans on our properties because we couldn't insure title to the lender. And these are the kind of loans that we need to improve our property, educate our children, pay medical expenses, etc. And for most of us, our home is our biggest investment. So we may need to make sure that title to it is secure.
Wow, sure sounds more complicated at first glance. Can you, on that note, can you give an example of how a person or one would benefit from title insurance?
Certainly, one of probably the most common title insurance claims has to do with property taxes. And when a property has received some sort of tax exemption, either an over 65 or a homestead, and that's actually been misapplied to the property, the taxing authorities can actually, when they find out they've misapplied an exemption to the property, they can go back 5 years and assess all those back taxes. And those back taxes are liens against the property, and they can be foreclosed. So a buyer who buys a piece of property when a previous seller has taken exemptions that they weren't necessarily entitled to, and this often happens in a deceased situation where the prior owner had an over 65, but the title still showed in his name because they never probated a will or never did heirship affidavits. The taxes become liens on the property as soon as the taxing authorities figure this out, and if the buyer wasn't insured, the buyer would have to pay those liens off to prevent foreclosure. But that's where the title company will step in and pay those liens off for the buyer because we've insured them. And then, of course, there are the other examples that, hopefully you don't experience very often, and that's one thing that we try and do is make sure we've eliminated these risks. But there are examples where liens have been filed against the property but have either been misindexed in the county clerk records or filed within the gap period between a title commitment when it's issued for closing and the closing actually occurs, or it might have been filed under a wrong name. If those liens aren't picked up when we insure the buyer on their title policy, then we'll be responsible for paying those liens off to prevent any foreclosure of that property. Once we've insured the buyer, we've got the responsibility.
That's scary. Before we wrap up, Don, what one piece of advice could you give someone who wants to know more about title insurance but really doesn't know where to start, or doesn't know what type of questions they should be asking their real estate professional?
Well, I think it's important for the listener to read in Texas to understand that in Texas, the Texas Department of Insurance regulates the cost of title insurance. So pricing is not negotiable. The most important question to ask the real estate professional then is which title company can provide the service you need for your closing. And I think the kind of questions that you need to know is which one of the title companies will keep you informed throughout the process, will help you meet your contractual deadlines, because there's many deadlines in there that you must meet, and if you don't, you're in default. And these are things such as financing approval, survey and title objections, closing date, many more. And then they want to know who will continue to answer their questions along the way, who's available always to be there to answer the questions as things arise. And then finally, they want to be sure that they have someone who will go above and beyond to make sure that the investment, which is their largest, for most people, their largest investment, is protected through their title search and examine.
Wow, this was extremely enlightening and interesting. So how can our listeners learn more or actually get in touch with you?
Well, thank you for asking. Our website at allegiancetitle.com provides lots of resources and tools of education for anybody who wants to know anything about title insurance or the closing process. But again, I would encourage everybody, if they have any questions, I will accept emails at tipoftheweek@allegiancetitle.com, and I'd be happy to get back with them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Don, for taking the time to doing this with us and teach this to our listeners. So I really, really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.